Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 6. This is a spoiler review. I have a mostly non-spoiler review up on my blog, soundandbettermyhead.com. You can check that out there. I actually ended up going with a 2.5 stars this season, which is a bit low. I think I was flirting with going with a 3-star season out of 5, but I just think I took points off, I think, for being so inferior to previous seasons. Have you seen any of my other reviews, or are you just now tuning in? I thought that every year S.H.I.E.L.D. had been getting better. I thought season 4 was the best season so far. I thought it was just this gradual build, but every episode just got better and better and better. And it was an amazing season. Season 5 was also really good. I just thought there was a few dips here and there, but the highs were still phenomenal, and the lows were never really that low. So I think overall that was a really good season. But this season, I think you're going back to the quality of maybe a season 3-ish. I think one of the big problems I ran into is I felt like they probably were pretty sure they're going to be canceled at season 5. They had an ending in mind since day one on how the show would end. And the show wasn't renewed until, I believe, like a few days before the season finale aired last season. So those are really legitimate chance that was it. So I think they threw everything at the wall. They ended this pretty perfect ending, and then they got the call to go back at it. So I don't think they had a lot of ideas on deck for the next season. In fact, I think they even said they weren't even sure what they were going to do. They kind of left themselves in a little bit of trouble because they had Fitz lost in space, so they knew they had to go get him back. And then also they killed off Phil Coulson's character, and they really didn't want to do the show without Coulson in some fashion, so they had to try to come up with some way to bring him back. That gives us 2 seemingly different storylines this season that eventually come together, but it just never really feels like it meshes right. The Lost in Space stuff with Fitz just was never that great. It started off with a lot of potential. I thought there was really a lot of cool stuff they could do being out in space. I think ultimately they went to like 2 planets, and they went to the same planet Kitson 6 times. And it was kind of annoying. There's a lot of near misses. Like Fitz was here, and then S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up 5 minutes later and just misses them. There was a lot of that going on. It was just getting kind of frustrating. I know they were doing that to make the reunion that much better when it did happen, but I don't know. It just never quite clicked. And then most of S.H.I.E.L.D. went back to Earth, and you still had Fitz and Gemma in space, and then they started doing this Chromicon storyline, which seemed like that was going to be the next big deal, and then that gets pushed to the background, and then you suddenly realize they're apparently saving this thing to pay off next season. So the only other major thing to come out of this was the introduction of Izel, who turned out to be the big bad, and it just was she was just kind of nonchalantly thrown in there. She just teams up with Fitz and Simmons, and they head back to Earth. It just seemed, I don't know, it never really clicked. Never felt like it was the big bad coming in. She just kind of shows up and it's like, hey, we're going back to Earth. I just think it could have been a little bit better, because I said it just felt like the story took this strange arc. I said it looked like it was going to be the Chronicon story, and it's like, no, we're going back to Earth with Izel, and she's going to be the big bad. As far as the other storyline, Coulson, basically brought him back as a character called Sarge. He's very mysterious where he came from. Everyone's trying to figure out why he looks like Coulson, why he's got Coulson's DNA. And again, it seems like the stuff that they were doing, maybe they always had an intent to go away, but it just felt like it took some strange turns away from what the story was supposed to be. I don't remember the correct pronunciation of Sarge's real name, but the one teammate of Sarge's, before he died, said that name, so I don't know why he would know who Sarge really was, and even Sarge didn't know. And then that somehow led to some Incan temple somewhere, and then I don't know, just felt like stuff was going one way, and then he's like, no, let's cut this story and go this way with it, and then we could bring Izel in, and then everything becomes one big story. And I said, it just felt like both stories took an unnatural turn. Once they did come together, it's finally kind of righted itself, and it wasn't too bad going into the end. There was still felt a little rushed, still felt a little off. But I think overall, once it got together, it worked okay. Shield continuing to get better in the action department. Again, this season, some solid moments, a lot of really good fight scenes. Daisy taking on the Chronicons on Kitson. You have Sarge having a pretty good, beat down against Agent May. Another pretty good fight with Sarge taking on Mac. There's some other ones in there, but those just stood out at the top of my head. And again, they usually have some cool uses of superpowers. Daisy's slightly juiced up since last season. After she took the injection that was meant to save Coulson's life. Seeing her breaking people's bones, and she's barely even moving her hand anymore. She's become not just more powerful, but more refined with her abilities. And just seeing her taking out all the Shrikes coming at her, she's not even moving. She's just taking them out with her vibrations. And also some cool new uses of Yo-Yo's powers. She seems to have almost like a bullet time thing now, where time almost slows down for her, even though she's not running. Another thing Shield's usually been good at usually balance out very well, is their humor. Occasionally they go a little too far with it, it's a little corny, but for the most part their humor tends to work. This season I think was a little bit more of a mixed bag. There wasn't really a lot of good humor, as a matter of fact. There was jokes here and there, but not as much as normal. One time where they did go over the top and it worked was the Fear and Loathing on the Planet Kitson, with everybody, not everybody, but most of the characters, Daisy, Gemma, Davis, getting high off of some type of LSD-like alien drug. And then this whole thing with Enoch being depressed because he's no longer like an important member of his race. That episode worked. It was funny. It was character driven. Seeing these characters basically high, it was something we haven't seen before. I think that episode worked. The next episode though, Code Yellow, was just corny. Deke comes back as this over the top kind of social media influence, and he's got this little startup company, and one of the producers on the show actually stepped in and plays his like really shallow girlfriend. The whole thing was really corny, and it really didn't work for me. It felt like an episode of The Flash, which I said The Flash is fine, but you expect that type of silliness from the show at times. It's more lighthearted overall. A lot of the CW Arrow shows. For S.H.I.E.L.D., it just felt a little bit out of place. Another thing that's always been great about S.H.I.E.L.D. is you've seen these characters and the relationships over like the last 6 years. So it always leads to some great interactions because these characters, what drives them, what they want in life. The episode with Fitz and Simmons trapped inside their brain was pretty good. Kind of seeing, kind of help their relationship flow a little bit better. Not flow, but get back on track, I should say. Some pretty good moments, like near the end, you have Deke explaining why he went out and did what he did, and how lonely he really is, and how hard it is for him to fit in our timeline. And just good acting there in general. But as seemingly almost every season now, Daisy gets some of the best moments. She had the whole sequence where it starts off with her reading the letter from Coulson that she had never opened yet. Just like I said, just a good job of just her face and acting, and you never see what's in the letter. You never get like a voiceover. Just her reacting to it was so well done. And the look on her face when Sarge, called her Sky was just, definitely like the kind of just pulls at your heartstrings. Just definitely pulls at your heartstrings, and it's just like just for her character and knowing how much Coulson meant to her and stuff. Her acting, definitely sealed it. I don't think there's a ton else to say about this season. I'm going to look through my notes, see what jumps out at me for the different episodes. They added a new character this season, Dr. Marcus Benson, who seemed like he was going to be a major addition to the show. And then he just got sent off to investigate, but it ended up being Izel, and we didn't see him until like the end again. It was just a weird addition to just kind of make a big fuss about bringing this guy on to the team, and then he's gone most of the rest of the season. I really could care less one way or another if he comes back. Nothing against the character, I just didn't think he added anything. All the new characters, he basically had Sarge's team, which they were just kind of random, generic looking bad guys at first, and then they actually got a chance to flesh them out a little bit later. Still don't know how to feel about Snowflake because she's basically nuts. She was slitting people's throats and killing innocent people. And then when she cooked up with Deke, she kind of became a little bit more sympathetic in her own way. But again, she's still a crazy murderer. So I don't know what, if anything, you do with her character. They put a lot of effort into fleshing out Jacko's character, giving his origin, talking about him, giving his, gave him a superpower with the fire breath. They actually made him pretty interesting, and then of course they blew him up. And then even worse, watching the show, it's obvious that Izel's still not in that spaceship and that she got off somehow. So it was a wasted death for a character that actually became likable. That's another small gripe overall about the season. Marvel has been pretty good about letting S.H.I.E.L.D. use characters that are not that important, that they're not going to use for movies. Anything from Graviton to Hive, stuff like that. So I was a little disappointed Izel never ended up being like a pre-established character. It's definitely a pretty heavy Terminator riff to the Chronicon Hunter, especially the main one. Even the music was pretty Terminator-esque, which was fine when he was just a minor character. I don't know how going forward, where he's basically their new leader, you just got his cheap Terminator ripoff, so I don't know where they're going to go with that. I thought Enoch actually started getting annoying. I really liked the character last season. He was cool this season, but after he kind of became lost from his people, he's started becoming kind of annoying. He finally got a little bit back on track later on, but there was a stretch where I didn't really care for him because he was so over the top. Like I said, the episode where Fitz and Simmons were in each other's mind was great. I understand why they brought the Doctor in, but at this point he's just kind of, I don't care as much about the character. They brought him back once last season. It was phenomenal. This would have been the first time they brought him back since the Framework storyline. It would have been a little bit more impactful, but it's just okay, there's a Doctor again, and he's just there. And then they had to make some kind of weird version of Gemma, based on the ring, kind of, that was just thrown in there just to have an evil Gemma as well. Interesting way to bring the monoliths back. Also, eventually finding out that the third monolith that we saw briefly last season was all about creation. Super obvious something was wrong with Davis when they came back. Didn't expect it to be Izel jumping from body to body. It was a good cliffhanger ending of May shooting Sarge. I usually don't watch the previews for the next episode. I happened to catch the first couple seconds of it, and it immediately revealed that May didn't know she did it, so it kind of ruined the surprise for me going into the next week already. I already knew that roughly what probably happened. Then you had the double May death sequences. Her first time getting stabbed was shocking, but I assumed that her going to the other realm would somehow keep her alive, which in a way it did. But I was really surprised at the second death. I actually thought they went through with it and killed her off, and then at the end, she gets saved somehow. And again, I don't know, was Sarge really trying to kill her, and she just happened to go in there and screw stuff up in the other realm, or was there maybe one last bit of Coulson in there that knew he could stop the aliens if he did what he did? Because after that, he was pretty hardcore, alien, invader, and he had seemed to have nothing left of him of Coulson. And then speaking of Coulson, of course, we had the twist at the end where it was revealed that Coulson will be back next season, this time as a new and improved LMD with all Coulson's previous memories uploaded, plus him being brought up to speed about what happened. It was a pretty decent cliffhanger. They basically, but now they go back in time, so apparently 1930s New York. Don't know what other kind of cool stuff we could see in that timeline. The only other major character in that era that I know of, from that we've even seen before, would be Peggy Carter, but I think at this point she hasn't even joined SSR yet. I think she's still in Britain. So I don't know if we'll see anybody cool back in the past, or where they're going to go with it, but I don't know. I actually had a lot more to say in the show than I thought. I always loved the show. I thought this season was just a big disappointment compared to how good the seasons have been before. And that's about it, so thanks for watching.